Welcome back to the third episode of Living Fully with Diabetes in association with Abbott. I'm your host, Deepthi Ahuja, Head of Content at HT Smartcast. In the previous episodes, we discussed the importance of adhering to medicines for individuals living with diabetes. We also explored the impact of technology on glucose levels. In this episode, we shift our focus to another interesting subject, which is the impact of nutrition on diabetes management. To tell us more about this, we have with us Dr. Ambrish Mithal, who is the chairman and head of endocrinology and diabetes at Max Hospital. Thank you so much, Dr. Mithal, for joining us today. Dr. Mithal, given the alarming statistic that over 101 million people live with diabetes in India, could you shed some light on the key factors or reasons contributing to the significant spike in diabetes cases?
Thank you for having me here. It's the rise in diabetes, is something that is hitting everyone in India. Everyone is aware of it. We are all concerned by the numbers. So remember, some of these numbers are simply because we are such a large population and our population is growing. So no wonder that the numbers will increase. Having said that, however, there is no doubt there's been a dramatic increase in the prevalence of diabetes over the last, say, 3 decades at least, ever since economic liberalization started in the early 90s. There's been a progressive increase in diabetes. Some figures suggest it's 1.5 times. Some figures suggest that it's more than 3 times of what it was in the 70s. So quite clearly, there is a dramatic increase. Now, this increase is initially was predominantly in the urban areas. And now there's an increase in the rural areas also. Within India also, there are substantial differences. We have very different there are many Indias within Indias, and you have different kinds of food, different kinds of culture. But that is not the determining factor. The one factor that seems to stand out is our urbanization and economic growth. So even within the country, areas that are more economically developed, where rural areas are less, let's say Goa or maybe Kerala or Chandigarh or Delhi, you will find very high prevalence of diabetes. And still in states like, say, Jharkhand and some others, where there's a significant difference in the development standards of, say, a city, the capital, and the surrounding rural areas, you will find a huge difference in prevalence of diabetes there, with the urban areas bearing the brunt of the condition. So, overall, dramatic increase related to urbanization, related to change in lifestyle, which automatically is related to our economic growth and progress.
Interesting. Considering the complex nature of diabetes, could you elaborate on how this condition may influence or contribute to the development of other comorbidities?
So I think we take blood glucose as just a sign. We don't take high blood glucose per se alone as a major disease. The problem with diabetes is that it comes with a lot of partners in crime.
Right.
Some that accompany it, some that are caused by it. So, for example, when we have high blood glucose in a patient, for example, for us it indicates, oh God, he's got high blood glucose, but very likely has high cholesterol, very likely has high blood pressure, and is more prone to the cardiac conditions, to kidney conditions, to eye problems, to liver problems. More recently understood is the association of fatty liver with diabetes. Then, of course, feet. Feet are a very important part of diabetes management. So, some of these they happen with diabetes, and they perpetuate each other. And some of them are directly a result of uncontrolled diabetes, especially, for example, eye and kidney are the two complications that are most directly related to a high blood glucose level. Heart, on the other hand, often accompanies it, and high blood glucose is just one point there. There are associations with high blood glucose, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, all these. So it's a mix and match of various things, but it is there. And when we see a blood glucose, we don't just focus on the blood glucose. One unifying factor here that contributes to all complications, in particular the progression of diabetes, the development of diabetes, the progression of diabetes, and complications is our body weight. So, obesity is the driver for all chronic diseases, chronic non-communicable diseases across the world, not just in India. So as we are talking of the epidemic of diabetes overtaking us in so many ways, it's linked to our increase in body weight.
Right.
As obesity is increasing, all these conditions will tend to increase.
Interesting. Now, diet plays a crucial role in the maintenance and overall development of well being, right? A healthy lifestyle not only impacts a physically healthy, fit body, but it also affects our mental and emotional well being. Dr. Mithal, how can diet and overall lifestyle management help people with diabetes? That's my first question. And the second question is what nutritional and lifestyle changes would you recommend to someone living with diabetes?
I think that's the most important point. So, as you can see by a previous discussion, there's a dramatic increase in diabetes. Our genes have not changed, right?
Yes.
Our genes are the same. So, whatever is happening because of the environment.
Hmm.
And the environment could be our lifestyle or could be some things beyond our control, such as pollution or endocrine disruptors, which we don't understand. But we know now, of course, that pollution per se can increase diabetes. Okay. So that's another factor contributing to diabetes.
Yeah.
But you're asking me about lifestyle.
Yes.
So, what can we do? I think if you divide lifestyle into some silos, it's easier. What about the diet part? The fundamental change in our diet has been increase in refined carbohydrate. It's not carbohydrate per se, it's refined carbohydrate, which means things that taste sweet and the hidden sugars that are there in things like maida, like white bread, like naan or kulcha or white chapati or shiny white rice. Those are all refined carbohydrates, cakes, pastries, name it. So that's all refined carbohydrate. So refined carbohydrate increase is much more in urban India than in rural India and has increased over the years because the fiber from the grain has gone out. So what diabetics should do is abandon or limit the use of refined carbohydrate to the lowest possible and replace it with complex carbohydrates like millets and wheat with choker in there, rice with bran or brown rice. So limit the amount of cereals, but also change the quality of cereals. So both things are very important. Okay. I think that is, if you ask me one point, that is the one point that is most important. The second point in diet is about protein. We
Hmm.
often ignore that. And the protein is not that important. And what does protein have to do with diabetes? Actually, protein is important.
Hmm.
Low protein intakes have been the hallmark of our country for at least last many decades.
Hmm.
Low protein intakes don't allow our muscle development. Our athletes don't win gold medals all the time for many years. Only now we are realizing the importance. A typical Indian diet is short in protein. And we have to increase our proteins to improve, reduce our insulin resistance, to help control our blood glucose, and overall to replace some of the useless carbohydrates, refined carbs with good proteins. So that's the second point. The third point in diet is to replace bad fat with good fat.
Right.
The mistake that the scientific world made in the 90s or 80s was to replace fat with carbohydrate, which has probably fueled this pandemic the world over. So if you replace bad fat with good fat, like trans fats where you reheat the oil, or fats that are solid at room temperature, replace them with fats from nuts, for example. Replace them with dry fruit, the good fats. So those are the things that will add value to your system. So these three fundamental things: refined carbohydrate goes, complex carbs with fiber come in, increase your protein intake, replace bad fats with good fats. These three parameters, of course, will be the main things that you will do. Of course, you should if you are a person with diabetes, you should get a personalized diet plan from your doctor or through your doctor or through your nutritionist. That's very important that we can't go into here. But these are the basics of what we need to follow. So we haven't covered exercise in one line. Just move it. It's very important. We can't have unrealistic expectations. You have these influencers on all kinds of social media channels who I think all day what they do is their exercise and diet and keep themselves fit. We are all busy working people. So what you can do is if you can do 30 to 40 minutes, ideally 40, 45 minutes of physical activity daily, which should be aerobic exercise like brisk walking, or maybe if you play a sport, nothing like it. Or if you actually go for aerobics, that's fine. But mix it up with some stretches like you do in yoga. And at least twice a week, do some light weights, resistance training. A combination of these, just giving you 40-45 minutes a day, would go a long way in protecting you from diabetes. And the last couple of silos are stress and sleep.
Hmm.
Stress is something I don't have an answer for that. Everyone tells me, you tell us you reduce our stress. How do we do that? We say the usual stuff: listen to music, read books, chat with friends. Physical activity can reduce your stress a lot. And yoga, of course, is known for that. So that is one aspect. The second, of course, is adequate sleep. We don't give enough importance. In the metros, I find most people are not getting adequate sleep. Adequate sleep at the right time, not sleeping in the day and working at night. Adequate sleep at the right time is important to keep us healthy and keep our diabetes under control. So these are the broadly the areas we need to control if we are trying to get a handle on our diabetes.
Awesome. Dr. Mithal, you've given us so much to ponder over and to bring into our lifestyle. And these things are really, really good for, people who are also not living with diabetes. It's just great advice. But you said something in the middle regarding proteins. Now, I'm curious, before I go on to my next question, I'm curious to know how protein affects glucose levels.
Well, when you have a significant amount of protein in the diet, in the short term, if you have protein with a meal, then it doesn't allow the sugar to rise that much. The carbohydrate, the spike of sugar that you get after a meal is reduced if you have enough protein with it, right? Of course, fiber and protein both play a role in that. Plus, over a period of time, if you're taking enough protein, you reduce your insulin resistance, which is one of the key features of type 2 diabetes, which is what we're talking about today. So I think protein plays a very, very important role in this. I'll give you another example. If you have less muscle mass, as most Indians do, we all have low muscle mass. Less muscle mass will increase your insulin resistance. So you may look lean, and actually your body weight may not be high, but you have low muscle mass and greater fat mass. And that itself is a contributor towards diabetes. So, so I think not just being lean, but working little bit towards your muscle will help you a lot.
Nice. I'm wondering if there are any diabetic specific nutritional supplements out there. Can you elaborate on their role and how they help people with diabetes?
I think the point I was making about protein actually that flows into this,
Lovely.
because if you are not able to meet your protein requirements as recommended by a nutritionist, take the help of support of supplements. And
Hmm.
there are options which patients which are available to us, which patients do partake sometimes. That is of supplements that are designed for people with diabetes, so they are low on carbohydrate. But make sure you check the contents properly. Make sure you check. Some of them have a lot of sucrose and other stuff, so that may nullify the effect. So make sure you check the contents, talk to your doctor. If you are struggling with your protein intake, somebody may have egg allergy, somebody may have dairy allergy or intolerance, you get your choices get limited. In that case, it's perfectly okay to go for a protein supplement which is designed for diabetics. This is particularly true of those following vegetarian diets, because in non-vegetarian diets, even if you have chicken and fish once a day, you'll cover a significant amount of your protein. But if you are a vegetarian and you don't like milk or avoid milk, and you don't have, there's so many eggs, then your choices of protein sources go down to dals and soya, and some people don't like soya either. So this is not such a small number of people. There are a lot of people who don't like milk at all or can't tolerate milk, for example. So then you might require this support.
Interesting. Are there any other supplements apart from protein that help with diabetes management?
Not really as supplements, but I would say choosing the right kind of, because everything we eat is packaged these days. So choosing the right kind of grain, I think, is very, very important. And at least those of us who can do it, our awareness about labels is very important. Some of the things that are marketed as healthy and diabetes friendly are nonsense, actually, humbug. You have to read the contents and say that this one is okay. And when in doubt, take it to your doctor when you go next time, or take it to your nutritionist. Make sure that because just don't go by diabetes friendly atta or diabetes friendly bread or diabetes friendly this and that. Make sure you know what is in there. Some of them have just one component, the others will still be damaging. So you have to balance that out and need to talk to to an expert about that.
Nice. Great advice again. Dr. Mithal, thank you so much for addressing such a crucial topic today. Diet truly plays a significant role in diabetes management. Any last piece of advice for the listeners, for our viewers who are trying to manage this particular condition, and they are trying to manage their glucose levels to live a healthy life?
So the first point is that whatever we talk about for people with diabetes is what everyone should do. So it's not
Hmm.
that people with diabetes are some esoteric breed. At my age,
Correct.
above 60, 40% of people living in metros are often diabetic. So what I'm saying is that we need to live a healthy life. These are all ways to lead a healthy life. So don't feel that you are being sort of isolated or targeted for some, forced advice that's your life is ruined. It's not like that. It's very important we all try and follow that. Number two, I would say make sure that you're maintaining your body weight. As I said again, when you're trying to prevent diabetes in your children, if you have diabetes, or if you're young and your parents have it and you don't want to go there, make sure you maintain ideal body weight. The moment you put on weight, you're increasing your risk for diabetes. And if you have diabetes, again, some people ask me how to reverse it. How to reverse diabetes? How can my diabetes go into remission? Again, the answer is maintenance or reduction of body weight. I think that is the key. If you keep that in mind and do everything in a positive frame of mind, not like stressing out about your exercise, stressing out about your diet, pushing yourself all the time. I'm not one of those who believes that. I'm a doctor, I deal with humans and lots of them. And we always want them to be relaxed and happy. And that's when they will follow advice much more.
Agreed. Absolutely. Relaxed, happy, healthy living is the way to go. Thank you so much, Dr. Mittal, for giving us your precious time and explaining to us how, more than the why or, all of that, at least explaining to us how diet plays, nutrition plays a key role in managing diabetes. Thank you so much again.
You're welcome. Thank you.